Hey guys, today we're going to be looking at these new Hawkglow off-road lights. I'm going to be using them as ditch lights. So I'm going to walk you through the unboxing, installation, and light output and see how these work. That's all coming up in today's video.
So let's start with the unboxing of these Hawkglow ditch lights. Let's open the box up, and what do we have inside? We have wiring instructions. Specifically, this is probably what will interest people most. You'll notice that there is connectors into a relay. This will go to the battery. There's an inline fuse. This will go into the passenger cabin and allow you to turn it on and off. Notice there's also separate leads for the DRLs. Okay, and it also comes with obviously this wiring harness and all of the mounts to put it on. Okay, and on the back, you just basically have a breakdown. This is what the lights look like when they're off, specs, product size. Also, it's a nice little add-on that they give you kind of a vent here in case there's any moisture that goes in. I also want to point out that there is DRL low beam and high beam, which is something I'm looking forward to doing. Once the install's finished and we get some darkness outside, I am anxious to see what the difference is between low beam and high beam. So let's get to the actual lights. This is what it looks like when you open the package. Let's start with the lights themselves here. Okay, so as you can see, this is a metal body, which is nice, okay? And then, like I said, this is the lead for your DRL, and this goes to the connector, mounting points down here at the bottom. You also have this covered in plastic, so we just gotta pop this little thing off here. So the cover at first might be a little hard to take off, mostly because of this protective thing. It kind of creates a sticky vacuum, but it does come with an orange amber cover. So if you want the light to be orange amber, you just snap that back on. And this is the actual light. So this is low beam, this is high beam. And you also have the DRL. I chose the arrow pattern. They have one where it's just round without these little things, but I thought the arrow pattern was kind of cool. And you can see inside there's a single diode for each one, and each lens refracts a little bit differently. Like I said, it is a metal body, so just for my own sanity, I'm going to leave this plastic on until the install's finished, just so I don't scratch anything up. And there's the ventilation. So we'll put this back for now. And let's take a look at the wiring harness. So the wiring harness looks pretty straightforward. There's your battery leads. As you guys know, I have an aux beam switch panel, so I'll probably be cutting these to tap into my switch panel. Your relay inline fuse, which is right here. It says fuse right on the cover there. And then a connection to the ports, and then of course your controller for inside the cabin. I will admit there's not a lot of operational instructions here. I'll have to see if there's any online, but I'm going to assume that one is left, one is right, and it toggles between low beam, high beam, and both, and off. That would be my guess. I'm gonna have to look in the instructions once I get everything sorted, and then take a look at that. So from there, you have mounting hardware, one each for each light. And then you also have your DRL cable, which is a simple cable that just connects to each of those DRL leads. So these yellow leads here, okay? And the yellow leads will go into here, and then you'll have a separate line for your DRL. So that's basically it. I will tell you that I do have a set of LP Adventure uh, brackets that I'm going to install these on, hood brackets to install these ditch lights on. So we're going to go ahead and bring this all outside to the car, and then we'll start our install. So we're outside now. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone how I am going to hook up this. Typically, if you didn't have anything else, the black and red leads would go right to your battery, and you would control your entire ditch light system from the little controller that's inside of the cabin that I showed you earlier in the unboxing part. But since I have this, let's take a look inside and take a look at what we're looking at here. Oop. Okay. So you can see here that right now the DRL is hooked up to number 2 on the panel. This is the DRL for the light bar. I am probably going to move that to one of the lower amperages, just because a DRL shouldn't take that much amperage anyway. That being said, that means I got to change up my switch panel on the inside. I will probably hook up the ditch lights to these 30 amp fuses here, and then maybe move the 2 DRLs to like 3 and 4, 5 and 6. If you know how the aux beam switch panels work, just a reminder that 1 and 2 and 3 are essentially the top rows, 4, 5, 6 is the bottom rows. So when you're looking at it, realistically, I think my DRLs are probably going to go either in 3 and 4 or 5 and 6, but layout wise it makes more sense to actually put them in 4 and 5, just so that the 2 DRL buttons are next to each other on the switch panel. So that being said, I'm gonna have to fiddle around and see what layout I like best. For sure, this DRL for the light bar is going to be moved because I want the higher amperage available for the lights, the actual lights. So we'll see how this goes, but I'm gonna just start the install, get everything done, and we'll take it from there. All right, so I'm just going to explain how the mounting works. This is the top, so low beam, high beam. Okay, so the mount that they give you looks like this, and it comes with a bunch of screws. So the way I found here, like, this is going to go onto your the mount, and the light is going to mount on here. So what you actually need to do is you need to unscrew these side ones here. Sorry about the dogs barking. The neighbor's dogs are pretty excited for some reason. Okay. So that separates the 2 mount pieces together. Okay. So now that you have the bottom mount, you're going to look at the bottom, and this is going to go here, and you're just going to screw the screws into the bottom of the mount here, and then once that's all screwed down, then you can reattach the other pieces of the mount, screw it in, and then you'll have a complete mount. So I'm going to do that now, and you can see what the final product looks like. All right, so in the end, this is what your mount's going to look like. Basically, this will then go onto your mount, and then you'll be able to screw it on. So I'm going to attach it now to the brackets, the LP Adventure brackets, and then you'll be able to see what it looks like when it's fully installed. Okay. Okay, so this is what the lights look like preliminarily mounted. As you can see, here is your bracket and attached to the LP Adventure bracket, and that's what it looks like. So now we're gonna just wire everything up.
Okay, I just wanted everyone to see how all the wiring and everything like that works. So, starting with the passenger side, wiring cable comes in here. LP, their mounts have this handy dandy little hole here that is actually designed to zip tie stuff, so I zip tied it just so it stays out of the engine bay. It's zip tied to the hood here, and it goes underneath the sound deadening and then pops out on the other side over here where it meets everything else. I'm gonna further clean this up so it's not in the way. Same thing on this side, again using the little thing that LP, the little hole LP gave. So first problem I ran into is the DRL cable that they provide you is the same length for both sides, which is a problem because I did not cut this cable and it was too short to reach the switch box. Originally I was like, oh, 2 DRLs, maybe I'll wire them separately, have 2 separate buttons on the switch panel for them, but when I found out that the wire was too short, I ended up using like a little tap so I can combine the 2 DRL cables and they join here. I had to remove this little panel, which is only held in by 2 clips, and shoved all the wiring in there. I learned that trick when I installed the switch panel as well. So once this panel is back on, this will actually look really clean. It looks like a mess right now, okay? And that goes in. So like I said, looking at the switch panel now, 1 is still the light bar, 2 is going to be the ditch lights in unison, 3 is now empty, 4 is the DRL for the light bar, and 5 is the DRL for the ditch lights. So I'm going to clean up the wiring. Oh, one last thing is the little control button. So I went through the firewall. As you can see, it's here. It is a little open. So far I've been, as you can see by the state of my engine bay, I've been off-roading. I've never had any water leakage or anything like that going through here. But as you can see, everything for the switch panel, for the light bar, and the actual aux beam switch panel goes through the firewall there. Basically, you take a huge long screwdriver and shove it in, or what I did was I used some long electrical wire, fed the wire through until it came out in the footwell, then taped all the wires to that cable and fed it through, and then it all leads to the switch box here. So I'm going to clean up the wiring, and then I'll show you what it all looks like when fully reassembled. And then I still have to deal with the switch inside the actual cabin, and we'll take a look at that after I clean everything up. So this is how it all looks when fully completed. This panel is back. The wires are somewhat hidden in here. I'm going to come around and into the switch panel, and we'll close the trunk and see how the ditch lights work. Okay, so now that the install's done, let's do a walk around. Right now, everything is in DRL mode, so my light bar and the ditch lights are on DRL mode. I'm gonna have to wait for it to be a little darker so I can aim them properly. But this is what the arrow DRL pattern looks like. I think it's kind of cool. I think it looks pretty good. And on the other side as well. Okay. So while I was playing around with the wiring, I found some interesting stuff out. So let's go inside the driver's seat and take a look. Okay, so we are now inside the driver's cabin. As you can see, I've relabeled my stuff. So they didn't really have a DRL for the ditch lights. They just had this cubes option. I wish they had like a cubes with the words DRL, but beggars can't be choosers, I guess. So anyways, For me, cubes is essentially the DRL. That's the DRL for the light bar. So light bar controls are here, and the ditch lights are here. I called this windshield just because it's literally the thing that I see when I look out of my windshield. So to power everything on, just hit that. They are now on. And then there is the remote. So now we have the remote. So at first I thought, since they're labeled on, off, I thought they are controlled independently. And that's wrong. Really, this is a master on-off switch. And this one activates and deactivates the high beam. So essentially when it is on, it is low beam only, and then when you engage this, it turns on the low beam and the high beam. So later when it gets dark, we're going to go out and we're going to see what that beam pattern is like. Right now it is literally the middle of the afternoon, so it's kind of bright out, but that is essentially what these buttons do. The main power switch right now for me is going to be controlled by the switch there, but realistically this is a master switch and this is a low beam, high beam. Since I'm really going to be using these only off-road, I'm probably going to keep these on just like high beam on all the time, because I'm only going to be using them off-road. However, I don't know, depending on how they're aimed, the low beam during some inclement weather or something like that might be useful. I don't want to blind people, so we're going to see what the beam pattern is like. So this is what it looks like with just the low beam. Okay, the camera is obviously going to make it look a lot dimmer than it really is, but that's low beam with the DRL. And let's turn on the high beam and we'll see what it looks like. Here we are, low beam and high beam, so you can see that the high beam is here. So like I said, I'm anxious to see what the beam patterns are like at night, and we're going to aim them and adjust them accordingly, and hopefully they provide some great output. So before we wrap up the daytime portion of this, there's one thing I wanted to bring up, and you'll notice in the unboxing we have these orange covers. This is really a way of making your beam pattern more amber or orange. Only thing I am going to say about this is that this just clips on. There is no weather seal or anything in between this cover and the actual light. So if you were to remove this cover, you just see it's literally just a piece of plastic. There's no weather seal. So my concern here is that since there's cutouts for all of the DRLs here, my concern is that water is going to seep in and it's just going to make this look all cloudy and stuff. So we'll have to drive in the rain and see. The other thing is there are mounting holes at the top here. I guess that's if you were to mount them on a light bar and you're going to mount them from this side instead, and from the top end. I guess that's how you would mount it. But again, there's exposed holes. Now those holes, they are, let me see if I can focus here. They are sealed. It's not like it goes into the light or anything like that. So because of that, I'm not too concerned, but I am thinking of getting some silicone or something just to fill those holes, because I don't plan on mounting them from the top here at all. If I was to go with a light bar or anything, I would just be adding lights. I don't think I would ever move these elsewhere. So there's that. So those are the two concerns that I have. Mostly long term, I'm interested to see how well these screws here hold up to rust. One great thing about this, unlike the Diode Dynamics, is that this lens is completely external. My Diode Dynamics fog lights, as you can see, you need to disassemble the fog light in order to change the lens. Whereas on these ones, if I want white, I literally just take off this cover. So even if these ones start to rust or show signs rust or anything like that. I'm not too concerned if it rusts and seals this housing shut. But I am interested to see how durable these screws come, especially through a Canadian winter. Okay, so a buddy of mine and we came out to the super dark road to aim everything and test the light output. We're on a dirt road, so it's similar to a trail, but it's a little wider. Right now, all of my lights, so the light bar and the new ditch lights, are all in DRL mode, and that is what's providing the forward lighting right now. So just as a control, I'm going to turn all the lights off except for the headlights so you can get an idea. And that is what the stock headlight is. So I immediately found that the orange covers that come with these lights really dampen the output of the lights. So I have taken them off for the purposes of this test. So we're going to turn on the ditch lights here, and that's what they look like. Now, this is the low beam only, and if I was to turn on the high beam, it adds a little bit more lighting to the ditch. Honestly, I thought the output would be a little bit brighter, but it's not too bad. It's almost safe enough to drive with them on in, say, inclement weather, but check your local and state laws about doing so. If you compare it to the SS3s that I have for fog lights, that's when it becomes apparent that these lights are dim. So here's the fog lights, and almost immediately you can tell that the ditch lights are kind of drowned out by the fog light. The way they're aimed right now, they're a little bit off to the side and a little bit further down, so aiming at the actual ditch. But I do feel that if I was to turn these off, like, the fog lights still provide quite a bit of view into the ditch. And then just for fun, we'll turn on the light bar, and as you can see, the light bar is a throw, so it doesn't really affect what's immediately in front of the car. So now I'll just turn everything other than the ditch lights off. So that is purely the ditch lights here. That's low beam, and that's the high beam ditch lights. Okay, so we're here on a pretty dark trail road right now. Just my low beams are on, and let's see what these ditch lights can do. So these are the low beams. As you can see, they shine to the side, and then these are the high beams. So let's take a little drive so you can see what they're like, and then I'll also mention when I turn on other lights. So you can see here that the beam shines off the side, that hot spot that I mentioned earlier. You can see it on this side as well, although that side is kind of blocked. And then we're gonna go through here. Now on a road like this, typically I would be running my full setup. So I'm gonna add my fog lights in, and I'm also gonna add my light bar in. Alright, so this is my full setup, everything on high. And again, this will be just low beams and the ditch lights, and then no ditch lights here. All right. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to show you guys is what the beam pattern of these ditch lights look like. Right now, everything is off except for the low beam of the ditch light. So this is the low beam here. It's very much like a fog light profile, but the beam is a little taller. It does have a couple hot spots, as you can see in the camera. So this is low beam, and oops. So low beam, and that's the high beam. So realistically, the high beam does add more light, but it's very much, the beam pattern's a lot more centralized. It's almost more of a spotlight, the high beams, versus the low beams, which are a bit wider. So as you can see, the high beams, they kind of spot right in the middle there, which is kind of nice, but that also means that it doesn't actually, the high beam, quote unquote high beam, is not like the high beam in your headlight where it adds further light down the road. It more like it amplifies the light that's already existing. You'll notice that even the high beam has a pretty good cutoff. Like there's not a lot of bleeding at the top. So it now adds, like now that I see it up against a wall, it does add a bit more of a spot versus the low beam, whereas kind of low beam is a bit more of a flood. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. These ditch lights are a nice addition to my setup. Like I said, just to summarize, I've removed the covers, so I have white light now, just because those covers actually reduced the output of the lights by so much that I found that without the covers, they were far more functional. Again, the DRL look of it is really cool, and from afar, I'm really liking the way this setup looks. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I have an off-road event hopefully coming up in October, which you'll be able to see a lot more of all of my lighting setup and extra stuff. All right, enjoy. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more of this content.